Hey, all right, good morning. This is Warren from Honed by Jones, and I'm doing something a little bit different today, which is I'm going live from from inside my house. Usually, if I'm doing a video for Honed by Jones, I go live from the garage workshop, but it's cold in the garage workshop today. I do have some knife sharpening that I have to do for customers today, but I also wanted to touch up a few of our personal knives today. So I decided to work inside the house. I decided to use, let me reach over the unit here. I decided to use the Edge Pro Bevel Tech for sharpening today rather than doing what I'm usually doing, which is using the Tormek water-cooled system or using one of my belt sanders. If you haven't heard of Edge Pro before, they're at edgeproinc.com. They're kind of the OG of guided sharpeners like this for knife or for using for sharpening knives or scissors or anything like that. So what I'm going to work on today is I've got three knives that are our personal knives from, we have a variety of knives in our own personal kitchen. I've got three knives that are from our personal culinary collection here of knives. And then I've got three knives that I keep in my workshop that are loaner knives. I always have a group of loaner knives in my workshop in case I get a customer or a restaurant, a residential customer or a restaurant that says they would like their knives sharpened. So this is literally a dollar store knife. That way, if I loan it out to a customer or a restaurant, I don't have to worry about getting it back. This is also a dollar store knife that I can loan out to a customer, a residential customer, or a restaurant. I don't have to worry about getting it back. This is a knife that was given to me last week by a customer who has had it for a while, but they purchased some nicer quality knives and they said, hey, what do I do with this knife that I no longer want? Should I just take it to the thrift store? And I said, nope, give it to me. I'll use it as one of my loaner knives in my business. So I'm going to sharpen all six of these knives today on the Edge Pro. The nice thing about our kitchen, so I'm going to move out of the camera view here so I can be in a better position to sharpen. The nice thing about the our personal culinary knives is that they're actually already pretty sharp. They are not as the loaner knives that I have over here. I have no idea how sharp those are, but our personal kitchen knives I should be able to move through really quickly. I'm not going to start at a very low grit stone to sharpen them. I'll probably go from say 500 grit diamond stone to, let me line up all my stones here in order, maybe 500 to 800 to 1500. For our personal knives, I'll probably use that simple progression. And then when I get into the loaner knives, we'll see. Maybe I'll do something a little bit more extensive. I use this Edge Pro Bevel Tech. I actually have two Edge Pro sharpeners. I have the Bevel Tech, which is their higher end sharpener here, and they just came out with it at the end of 2024. And I use that in my sharpening service quite a bit. I also use the Apex, which is their entry-level model that I have had for years and years and years. I also use that in my sharpening service. I think I'm going to turn the lights up just a hair, so if you'll bear with me here. I want as much light on the subject as possible while I'm sharpening today. There we go. That's better. I can see the edge better and see where I put the Sharpie on the knife edge a little bit better if I turn the lights up a little bit better. I've used these systems for a super long time, since I've had the Apex for maybe 5 years or something like that. I bought it right after I first started sharpening. The first sharpening system I had was an $8 whetstone I got from Ace Hardware. And I purchased that and I thought I really want to learn how to sharpen my own knives. And then as soon as I started working with that $8 whetstone that I had purchased at Ace Hardware, I realized, oh, that's terrible. That thing doesn't do much at all. And so the next thing I purchased was an Edge Pro. Actually, I'm going to move these stones to the other side so it's a little more convenient for me. The next thing I purchased in my sharpening life was the Edge Pro Apex. And, if you've watched my channel at all, now I have 10 different machines to sharpen with or something like that. But I still love these Edge Pro systems. The way that I use them in my sharpening service is that at least one of the Edge Pro, oh, doing something a little wrong there. There we go. At least one of the Edge Pro sharpening systems. There we go. I think I just hit the apex just about right. I'm going to adjust it a little bit more. One of the Edge Pro sharpening systems just lives in my car at all times, so that I have a mobile sharpening setup with me. And if I happen to be at a friend's house or something like that, and they say, hey, you know, I wish you had your sharpening stuff here, you could do a couple of my knives, I can say, actually, I do have my sharpening stuff here. And I pull out my Edge Pro systems, one of my Edge Pro systems, I clamp it to the table. I don't know if you can see that I've got it clamped. Hey, Jim, how's it going? Hello, everybody. Hey, Jeff. Nice to see you all this morning. Thanks for hanging out with me. Please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Yeah, that angle's looking perfect there. Taking off the Sharpie just where I want to take it off. So I use this Edge Pro system with diamond stones from a company called Ruxin Pro. You can get them on Amazon, and they've been working really well for me. Had really good results over the last year or so using these diamond stones. I used to use Edge Pro stones exclusively, but I lost them somewhere at some point. I had a packet of them, and I don't know if I lost them at a farmer's market. I don't know if I left them somewhere. So I ordered these diamond stones off of Amazon as a temporary replacement and haven't looked back yet, although I am starting to do a lot more work with my Edge Pro systems. Like I said, one of them is always living in my car just in case I need to do some mobile work. So I'm starting to use these systems more, and because I enjoy them so much as well. And so I'll probably order some Edge Pro stones at some point in the near future, just to get back into the Edge Pro stone game, because they have some really high quality stones as well. Particularly their diamond matrix stones are really nice. So that's a 500 grit diamond stone that I'm starting out with, and that's already getting super sharp. Interesting things about this Edge Pro system. It is unlike the other guided systems. Most all of the other guided systems have some sort of clamping mechanism to clamp your knife in place. And this Edge Pro system does not. It uses the combination of this slide guide here, which is this part here, the combination of the base, which is underneath here, obviously, supporting the knife, and there are magnets in the base of this unit. So let me see if I can pull one of those magnets out. Yeah, it doesn't want to come out right now. I think I've got some grit in there, so I need to get a heavier piece of steel or a heavier magnet to pull that out. But there are magnets embedded in the base of the unit right here. And so the combination of those things allows you to move the knife around really nicely. All the other units that you clamp a knife in, the knife is clamped in place and you have to move the guide rod to sharpen the knife. One of the nice things about the Beveltech is that you can move the knife and you can move the guide rod. And if you want, you can kind of move the knife along and keep the guide rod more centered on the table. So you don't end up, if you have a long knife, you don't end up way over here or way over here like you do with some of those systems that you have to clamp in place. So that's one of the advantages I find with the Edge Pro. You see me moving the knife right there as a little bit as I'm sharpening. And because I'm right-handed, I do find it a little bit easier to sharpen on the opposite side of what I'm doing now, just because my coordination is better on my right arm. So it's not too much better. I've been a percussionist, a musician for a really long time. And so, I use both my hands to play music. So my coordination isn't drastically different from arm to arm, but I definitely notice it when I'm sharpening, that things are way easier if they're in my right, if my dominant hand is doing the primary work as compared to my non-dominant hand. So I just switched from the 500 grit stone to the 800 grit stone. I don't put a lot of pressure on when I'm sharpening with these diamond stones. I really just let the stone do most of the work. It's not necessary to put a lot of pressure on. I've got a great burr going on this knife, and it's just flipping back and forth as I switch from one side of the knife to the other. So I use these Edge Pro systems for a lot of items. I actually sharpen half of the scissors I do on my Edge Pro system, and instead of having this attachment on it like I do now, in about a minute, I can, maybe 2 minutes, no, I'd say it takes me about a minute, I can switch over to the scissor sharpening attachment, and I can use that with the Edge Pro. And so I actually sharpen scissors, I sharpen animal grooming shears, and I sharpen barbershop and salon shears on this system, but with a different attachment on there. I'm not going to do that today. Today I'm just going to sharpen knives. This system, especially if you get the scissor attachment, is really versatile. Especially if you have a nice collection of stones that you can use with it. You can sharpen just about anything with it. And one of the nice things about this slide glide plate here is that if I finish up this knife and I want to sharpen a cleaver, it's super fast to adjust for the cleaver. I just slide this down. Now I can put the cleaver on here, which I'll show you. I'll do the cleaver next. Then if I had to do a small axe on here, it would be super easy to adjust back up for the small axe. I don't have to unclamp anything. I just have to slide this unit up and down into the right position, and it works really well for all of those. So I'm not gonna deburr or finish up with the last stone yet, but you can see I'm already getting a pretty nice edge. That's off of the 800 grit diamond stone without deburring or anything like that. So I may leave it there. No, I'm gonna do some what I would call stropping passes on the 1500 grit diamond stone. And so one of the you saw how nicely that cut through that piece of paper. One of the things that people will say is, are you concerned because there's no clamp holding the knife in place? Are you concerned that you're not getting a precise and accurate result when you're sharpening that knife? I will tell you what I have learned in my sharpening service. I am concerned with results. I am not concerned if the knife is, if I'm sharpening, because this is not in a clamp and this is at 14.8 degrees right here and it's at 14.6 degrees right here, I don't care. As long as the result is that I get a very nice knife that excuse me, I bumped the camera there. As long as the result is that I get a knife that cuts really nice and performs really well in my kitchen or my customer's kitchen, I don't care if it moves 0.2 degrees from this part of the knife to this part of the knife. And I will guarantee you this. If you've ever had a knife that's been sharpened by a really talented whetstone sharpener, right? So there's very talented whetstone sharpeners out there. I will guarantee you that this is 90 times more accurate than a whetstone sharpener. And no one would argue that people can't get knives super sharp and at have a really great edge on them with a whetstone. So it is always kind of funny to me, with how much precision there is built into this system. It's always kind of funny to me that people are worried that it's not going to be precise enough. Yet at the same time, we all see people on YouTube or perhaps in person, if you happen to know a really great whetstone sharpener. We've all seen those people get knives super, super sharp, being able to just slice through the lightest paper with really great edges. So, I think this system is great because not only does it give me really good results, so that's up to the 1500 grit stone now, diamond stone. Not only does it give me really great results, but it's super versatile. I don't have to pull out an Allen key to clamp a knife in it. And I still just get fantastically sharp knives and fantastically sharp scissors and shears and the like. It's been my favorite system for a long time. Their customer service over at Edge Pro is really great. Cody is, I think, I'm not sure. I think Cody is the owner of the company now, or part owner with the guy who originally started the company. You can call them, email them, Instagram message them. He's always messaged me back quickly. Oh, let me not do that yet. He's always messaged me back quickly with very thorough, kind, thoughtful answers. And man, if you can get that out of a company, USA made stuff, so you're not having to deal with, a customer service that's in another country that's tricky to get a hold of, and the timing is tricky. I love that. Okay, so I did the first knife. Now I'm going to show you how long it takes for me to adjust this system to put on about an 8-inch chef's knife. So I don't know, how long was that? Less than 30 seconds, 10 seconds. I actually didn't time it, but that's about how long it takes to adjust for the next knife. And then what I do is I'm not trying to match a specific angle, because I put angles on these knives a long time ago. I think I sharpened them at 17 degrees or something like that on my Tormek. So I don't need to measure the angle again. I already know it's at a decent angle. All I need to do is use the Sharpie technique to see if I can match the existing angle. This time, instead of going all the way, yeah, that looks like that's going to work. That's going to put, actually I'm going to go down maybe like 1 degree. Just a little bit shallower. See how that works. So this time, because I know this knife is pretty decently sharp, I'm starting out with the 800 grit stone. I'm really just touching up these personal knives from our kitchen. I'm not actually trying to put a brand new, I'm not rebeveling or not regrinding the edge or anything like that. I'm just kind of trying to touch up these knives. I probably even could have started at a higher grit, but I kind of wanted to show how this system works, because I don't really show this system on camera on YouTube very often. And I went a hair too high. Well, no, actually, yeah. We're gonna go up 1/2 degree. Right at the tip, I'm not quite getting the Sharpie, so I'm just going up 1/2 degree just to make sure I get that Sharpie right at the tip of the knife. Yeah, that's looking better. I may do a slight adjustment of the slide guide here. And sorry if it's, I didn't think about it. I should have used my other tripod, which sits on the floor. This tripod I'm using right now to do this live is sitting on the table. So sorry if it's making the table bounce, or making the camera bounce around a bit as I work. I didn't really plan that one out that well. I have a big tripod that I could have put on the floor, and then there wouldn't have been any shakiness whatsoever. Yeah, so with this Edge Pro system, once you get the scissor sharpening attachment for this system, you can really sharpen a lot of different items. Like I have a Tormek. Many people know what the Tormek water-cooled sharpening system is. And one of the things about the Tormek is that you need a lot of jigs. You need a lot of extra things in order to make the Tormek be able to sharpen knives, and then scissors, and then garden tools, and then if you want to sharpen axes and hatchets, it's got a different jig for that. And you end up buying all of, and as much as I love the Tormek system, there are a lot of extraneous accessories that you need to sharpen with that system. One of the nice things about the Edge Pro system here is if you get the Edge Pro system and the scissor attachment, you can sharpen most anything that you would want to sharpen with that. You can do knives, you can do scissors, you can do your garden tools, you could do axes and hatchets, you could do all kinds of different stuff just with this one system and the scissor sharpening attachment. If you're a home sharpener and you want one system that can just kind of do everything that you might have around your house, these Edge Pro systems would be great for that. They're super versatile. If you're starting out a business and you're just sharpening as a side hustle, and you want to have just one system to start out with, and you're not going to have a bunch of knives to do, or right from day one, but you want something that can still get through stuff relatively efficiently, this could be a good system for you as well. So I'm going to do something different. The last knife I finished at 1500. The chef's knife I'm going to finish at 800. I often do that with knives that we use in our kitchen, our personal kitchen, like these are. These knives are from, just to test things out. Sometimes I play little games where I sharpen things at speak English, Warren, where I sharpen with different systems at different angles, different grits, and I test to see if my lady can tell what I sharpened it with. She can tell if it's sharpened with the belt sander, if she can tell if it's sharpened with the Edge Pro, the Tormek. Does she like a different angle? Mostly she tells me that she just likes that our knives are sharp all the time, 24/7. And she tends to not she tends to not care too much what machine I do it on. So that's two knives, right? I started out with this little guy, like a utility knife. Then I did a hey Vinny, thought you were painting today, but you must have taken a break. So I started out with this little guy, and then I did the standard chef's knife style thing here. And now I want to show you how long it's going to take me to adjust the Edge Pro if I want to do a cleaver. So you can start counting. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi. That's totally I'm not staying consistent there, but that was just a few Mississippis, right? I was all over the place. It's hard to believe with how I was counting those Mississippis that I'm actually a percussionist who has to keep time. So I was distracted by what I was doing. So this is a cleaver. My mom passed away a few years ago. This is a cleaver that used to live in her kitchen for many, many years. And I ended up, when she passed away, I ended up bringing it to my place, or our place, I should say, our family's house. Interesting, I didn't even think about this. A couple of things after my mom passed away, the only two things I took from my parents' household was this cleaver and a Swiss Army knife that my mom used when she traveled to Europe one time. She had it in her suitcase. So this is a Skylight classic stainless steel. I don't know who it's made by. It says German stainless steel, CRMOV 15, Chinese style chef's knife. I don't know if this cleaver's even made anymore. But yeah, it works good in our kitchen. So this one, so the first knife I did, the utility knife, I did 500 grit, 800 grit, and then 1500 grit. And then when I went to the chef's knife, I did 500 grit, and then I followed that up with 800 grit and stopped there. With the cleaver, I'm going to do 800 grit, and I'm going to do 800 grit only and just leave it there and see how that turns out. Like I said, I run these tests all the time on our personal knives where I sharpen them at different grits, I sharpen them at different angles so that I can compare how it works, because when a customer asks me for a knife sharpened in a particular way, I have experience sharpening in different ways. I don't want to say to them, well, I only know how to sharpen at this one angle, at this one grit. Because if I do that and they ask for something else, I don't have the skill or the knowledge to do anything else. So I constantly change things up in our personal kitchen, and I kind of treat us as the guinea pigs for the rest of the world that I sharpen for. And looks like that angle is good. So that means I sharpened all of these knives around the same angle. That's kind of surprising to me, because usually I would think I would sharpen a cleaver at a higher angle, a more obtuse angle than a chef's knife or a utility knife. But like I said, I experiment with angles a lot in our personal kitchen and our personal knives. So who knows what angle I sharpen this at. And I'm not even hitting the bevel perfectly at the angle I did it last time. I'm actually sharpening at a little more obtuse angle. What I notice when I look at this cleaver is, one thing, it's super sharp. So I don't really need to do a lot of work on it. I think I'm just going to do a couple passes on each side and call it a day. But I think I sharpened it at a pretty low angle last time, whatever it was, and there's no chipping at all on this cleaver. And I use this cleaver pretty often. We eat a lot of butternut squash. We eat a lot of not a lot of acorn squash. We eat some acorn squash. We eat a lot of butternut squash. We don't eat a lot of meat in our household. We don't process a ton of meat in our household. So it's not going through bones very often, but it is very often going through hard things like, oh, for example, my sweetheart likes to get pineapples on a regular basis. So it goes through pineapple, it goes through butternut squash, those kind of things on a pretty regular basis. Um, so these knives aren't babied, even though they're not cutting through, say, bone on a regular basis. And like I said, with this guy, needs a little bit more work down there near the tip. This guy, I'm going to do just the 800 grit and call it a day. You can see the metal coming off of the knife. The diamond stone you can see it building up on the knife here. You could lubricate these stones, and I used to lubricate diamond stones when I first started using them, but now I'm maybe too lazy. What I have noticed is I can't tell any difference. I can't tell any difference with how they perform. I can't tell any difference with how long they last. I tend not to abuse my stones by putting a ton of pressure into them, so they seem to last a long time regardless of what I do. So when I'm just kind of touching up our personal knives here today, I am going to just hit it dry. I'm just going to do this dry here without putting any oil or water or anything like that, and just call it good. Once again, I'm not actually looking over very often at the chat, nor am I. I'm not looking at the camera or the chat very often. So if you have any questions, thoughts, concerns, comments, please feel free to put them in there in the comments section. I'm almost done with this guy. I'm just going to do a few light stropping passes on each side, 800 grit diamond stone, just to kind of clean up the edge. Make sure it's nice and even. Oftentimes when I'm doing these light stropping strokes, I will do 3, and then I'll do 2 on each side, and then I'll do 1 on each side. And these are really low pressure strokes. I'm not hardly using any pressure at all. It's almost just the weight of the stone, and that's it. So that's one of the convenient things about this Edge Pro system, is that flipping the knife over is super easy. You'll see that green tape that's underneath. That's to keep the knives from getting scratched. If this was a customer's knife, I would have put some more green tape on there down here as well this morning, but this is my personal knife, so I am not worried about it getting scratched. This knife came from, like I said, my parents' house, and it had scratches on it long before it got to our house. If you're wondering what I'm running the edge through here, this is a felt block for deburring that you can get from Chef's Knives to Go. I've used this for a long time and had really good luck with deburring with that guy. And so you could see, I don't know if that was close enough, you can see that cleaver is super sharp with the Edge Pro system. Last thing I'm going to do before I put this knife away is I keep rubbing alcohol in those cosmetic misting bottles. I don't know what else you'd call them. Yeah, that bevel looks just really great, really clean, really nice, and very sharp. So our kitchen knives are done. All right, that's 3 of them. So I keep rubbing alcohol in these. I think cosmetologists and barbers use these for spraying water and other stuff. Also works really good for spraying a nice even mist of alcohol for cleaning off knives before I give them back to customers. All right, moving on. This is a loaner knife. So I mentioned this guy earlier, so now once again you get to see how long it takes me to adjust the Edge Pro back up to a good position. Oops, I didn't loosen it enough. There we go. I should do it with my left hand so you can actually see. That's kind of awkward, so let me do it like this. That way you can see what's going on. Just so used to doing everything so it's convenient for me with my right hand and not convenient for the camera. Okay, so that's how long it took me to adjust. That was a little longer than usual. because I was playing around with how I would position the knife on here. We are once again going to put some Sharpie on the edge of this knife. Once again, I don't care what angle I'm putting on this. I don't think that was enough Sharpie. Once again, I don't care what specific angle I'm putting on this knife. I am just matching, or I'm not even necessarily matching the angle that was on there before. I'm just trying to get close to the angle that was on there before. And if I don't match it perfectly, then c'est la vie. It's going to be a knife that a customer has for maybe 24 hours at their house, or a restaurant has for maybe 24 hours while I'm sharpening their stuff in my home workshop to give back to them. And that looks like I'm hitting it just fine. Yeah, that looks good. So this knife is going to go to a residential customer or a restaurant when I'm sharpening their knives. 1 degree lower. This knife will go to a customer or a residential customer, or, yeah, that's better. Residential customer or a restaurant when I'm sharpening their knives, if I keep repeating myself over and over again. And it's just something they'll have for a short period of time. I want it to, of course, be short. I want it to, of course, be sharp and ready to go for their use. So I'm going to put a nice edge on it, but I'm also not going to spend an hour, sharpening this knife up to 5,000 grit or something like that. This is really just a temporary knife to use for them until they get their knives back precision sharpened on my systems out in the workshop and ready to go. And as you can see, this Edge Pro system's leaving a great edge on the knives anyway. I'm only going to go up to 800 grit again. Looks like there's a tiny little bit of chipping right there, which I'm going to have to work my way through. I'm only going to go up to 800 grit again with these loaner knives because I don't see any point in going up to a higher grit. I like to leave knives without a super high grit anyway because I like knives to be a little toothy, unless the customer asks me for something different. That's the way I prefer them in my kitchen. I prefer them to have a little tooth to them, a little bite to them, so that they cut through things like tomatoes really well. So that's my bias anyways. Of course, if a customer wants a knife sharpened to a very high grit, I can do that. I can even sharpen to a polished edge if that's what they want, but it's not the standard way that I sharpen. So a lot of sharpeners that you see, if you watch any YouTube videos of sharpening, they will show you what a knife looks like, or cuts like, I should say, after they have gone from, 500 grit to 800 grit to 1200 grit to 2000 grit to 4000 grit. Then they've stropped the knife and they've gone through this whole entire process, and they want to show you how sharp the knife is. I always like to show how sharp knives are when I've just done one step of the process, and then show you what it feels like after I've done another step of the process. So fortunately, we've got some scrap paper right next to me here in our little art drawer for the kid. And so that's 500 grit, no stropping, no burr removal off of the Edge Pro. And as you can see, I'm already getting a good result. This was not a knife from my kitchen. This is, like I said, a loaner knife. This was not a sharp knife. This knife, I should have cut it. I blew it there. I realized I should have done a cut test before I even started sharpening. But c'est la vie. You'll just have to trust me that it was dull before I started. The other thing that I'm not doing on here, I guess I could have put a little timer of some sort in front of me so that you could see how fast overall I can sharpen knives on this system. I'm not trying to go fast, but as you can see, I'm also not sitting here spending 30 minutes on each knife, and I'm getting good results even off of a 500 grit diamond stone without spending too much time. So eventually on this knife, I need to do a little bit of tip repair. There's a tiny little chip out of the tip, but we're not going to do that today. That'll be for another day. For right now, we are just going to get this guy super sharp and ready to go. I often will lessen my pressure on the last few strokes on any stone. So this was the 500 grit diamond stone. Now I'm switching over to the 800 grit diamond stone. The difference is that once I go up to a higher grit, I just stop using a lot of pressure. Once I've established a burr, all I'm doing from then on is I'm just focused on refining the scratch pattern. I'm not actually trying to remove a lot of metal anymore. Now that I already know it's sharp at 500 degrees, now that I know it's sharp at 500 grit, the 800 grit is all I'm trying to do is remove the scratch pattern and refine the scratch pattern. I'm no longer trying to remove metal. Now, a little bit of metal will be removed in the process, but that is not my goal. If you could see my hand, you would see that I'm kind of gripping with just two fingers here. I'm kind of gripping with my middle finger and my my ring finger. And I grip that way on the ball of the guide rod here so that I'm not gripping with a full fist so that I'm putting a lot of pressure on there. I really just kind of grip between a couple of fingers lightly and just barely use any pressure, just kind of refining and that scratch pattern, and then switching to the other side. And I'll do the same thing. I'm just, two fingers, not using a lot of pressure, not trying to remove hardly any metal, just refining the scratch pattern on the other side. So other things I like about these Edge Pro systems. I've had my Apex for 5 years now, and there we go. That little tiny chip that was in the back right here just disappeared, so that's gone completely. So now we've got a nice clean edge all the way the full length of the knife. One of the things I like about these Edge Pro systems is they're so well built. I've had my Apex, so this is the Bevel Tech. I've had my Apex for 5 years. It's still running strong. It's pretty much all metal construction where it needs to be. So like this little guy, this little threaded bolt here is plastic. These two guys are plastic. I believe, no, I don't even know. Yep, I think these two guys are plastic right here. You can't see what I'm doing. These two guys are plastic that hold the stones. This little slider doodad here is partially plastic where the metal rod slides through. But when you're talking about the base of the unit here, the upright here, the plate that the knife sits on, it's just all solid metal. And so it feels like you could buy these Edge Pro systems and use them for the next 30 years and they would still be running strong. You'd of course have to replace stones as you go, as the stones wear out, but name a system that you can get where eventually you're not going to have to replace the stones. I don't know what that system is, or the belts, right? Eventually you're going to have to replace either stones or belts on any type of system that you're using. So that just comes with the process. So now we're 800 grit. We have refined the scratch pattern. We're just doing super light passes. I'm not trying to sharpen anymore. I'm really just kind of honing the edge of the knife to make sure it's nice and clean and sharp. Oh, where's my felt block? I call it the felt block of joy. Deburring there with the felt block. Let's see how it cuts through some paper. This is not the lightest, finest paper. I could have picked something else, but look at that. I almost just cut my finger. You know, being a sharpener, people always ask me if I cut myself. What is the knife sharpener called? Dylan. Hey, Dylan. This is knife sharpener is the Edge Pro Bevel Tech. You can check out edgeproinc.com. And they have all of their systems there, and you can see, I think they have 3 different models. This is the Bevel Tech, the top of the line model. They also have another model called the Professional, and I believe another model called the Apex. edgeproinc.com. When I'm done with this video, I will, and I make sure it's public on YouTube, I will put a pinned comment at the top with a link to Edge Pro. How's that sound? That way you can go straight from there if you need to. All right, I think I'm going to be done for the day. I have got 4 knives done. This is a loaner knife that was brought to me by a customer who upgraded and bought some new knives. Didn't want this one anymore, so now I put it into my loaner fleet. I sharpened 3 of our knives from our home collection of knives that we have. We don't have a super extensive collection of knives. And I've got 2 more dollar store knives to sharpen. And I'm going to do that off camera because who needs to see me sharpen dollar store loaner knives? All right, this is Warren from Honed by Jones. Happy Wednesday to you all. Thanks for liking and subscribing. Hopefully that was helpful, particularly if anyone's interested in getting an Edge Pro. Hopefully that was helpful. Like I said, I don't use these systems on YouTube very much. I'm often sharpening on my Tormek on YouTube, but I'm going to start using the bevel techs a lot more extensively. All right, this is Warren from Honed by Jones. Let me lean in and say I'll catch you on the flip side. Hope you have a great day. Later.